Every big franchise has scenes that didn't make the final cut, and Harry Potter is no exception. And here are a few sequences that certainly had to stay. From Malfoy's redemption to Dumbledore making everyone sing karaoke.
Let's entertain our friends in the best way we can.
And all the way to Aunt Petunia being a loving sister. Let's see how these scenes could have changed everything. Here's your wand, Potter. Are you one of those fans who despised Draco in the beginning but grew to understand him better in the end? After all, he wasn't that bad of a person. By the end of the series, we realized that Malfoy was nothing but a product of his parents' upbringing. They often pressured him into doing things he didn't want to do. That's why fans often say that while Harry was the boy who lived, Draco should be called the boy who had no choice. And in one of his final scenes, Malfoy proved that he was better than everyone thought. Now, watch carefully for this blink and you miss it moment. Yes, you're right. The moment Draco realized that Harry was alive, he ran and threw his wand to him. If it wasn't for his fast as a lightning reaction, Potter would have had a much harder time defeating Voldemort, don't you think? So it's unclear why they deleted the scene. After all, those 3 seconds had a huge meaning to the character of Draco. And here's another moment from Deathly Hallows that certainly had to stay in the film. Skip a stone, girl. The final 2 parts of the franchise were quite dark and gloomy. But it turns out that amid the desperate chase for the Horcruxes, Ron and Hermione found the time to just be 2 teens. And for the first time ever, Ron taught something to Hermione instead of the other way around. Check this out.
Lean back a bit, get quite low. Flick the wrist. Whoa!
That's right. The 2 of them took a short break from saving the world and decided to skip stones. And here's a shocker. It revealed that Hermione was bad at something.
I like that.
No.
Besides, the scene showed the growing affection between them, which was rather lovely.
Just his arm back and then...
If this scene stayed in the final cut, it would be the only moment of normality in the Deathly Hallows. But looks like the editing crew decided not to give it to us. Keep watching for more deleted scenes from the final movies. And now, we're jumping back to the first film for another cute Ron and Hermione moment. Gryffindor gang at its best. We all know that Hermione was one of the, if not the most diligent student in Hogwarts. She even thought that getting expelled was worse than dying, remember? The Sorcerer's Stone film had one more scene that proved this point. While everyone was getting ready for their exams, Hermione scolded Ron for playing cards and asked him,
Question. All right, what are the 3 most crucial ingredients in a forgetfulness potion?
I forgot.
Ironic, huh? And when Hermione asked him how he was going to pass the exam, he had the cutest answer.
Copy off you?
No, you won't.
Don't you just love how direct she is with her reply? And wait, because this scene doesn't end here. Next, we see poor Neville, who can't walk because of a spell Malfoy cast on him.
You have got to start standing up to people, Neville.
How? I can barely stand.
Seamus, known for his tendency to light things on fire, offered to help the poor guy, but Neville immediately refused.
Anyone care to notice? My eyebrows have completely grown back.
This scene showed us different sides to the Gryffindor students who were featured much more in the books. We saw very few of them in the films, so it would have been cool if this scene stayed. Just like the next one, but for a much sadder reason. Don't live in dreams. If this one remained in the final cut, it would certainly have made you cry. You must remember how Harry found the Mirror of Erised in the Sorcerer's Stone. It showed him the life with his parents he always wanted to have. And the boy started getting lost in that dream until Dumbledore made him stop. Turns out, before the professor did, Ron tried to convince his friend that it wasn't a good idea to spend so much time there.
Harry, I know what you're thinking, but don't. There's something not right about that mirror.
It's a simple scene, but it reveals Harry as a deeper character who struggles to overcome his loss. Besides, it's one of the first times Dan Radcliffe showed how talented of an actor he actually is. So it's a shame that this scene ended up on the cutting room floor. And here's another one that proved that he's a great dramatic performer. Coping with the worst. Probably one of the most painful times for Harry was the death of his beloved godfather, Sirius Black. The movie showed the moment when it happened very well, but it failed to give a glimpse into how Harry felt afterwards. In the final cut, it seemed as if there was no mourning over the beloved character. However, there was a scene that revealed it.
Face about to start.
Thanks, Ron. I'm not really in the mood.
Ron then offers to stay with him, but Harry refuses and says that he'll be okay. Yet it's obvious that the boy is still coming to terms with what has happened. Next, the deleted scene shows how both Ron and Hermione are struggling with it as well and want to help their friend. Although they don't say a word, their eyes show exactly how they feel. So it definitely would have been great to see this scene in the film. But let's take a break from these sad episodes now and talk about a much merrier moment. Hogwarts, teach us something, please. The Goblet of Fire is a dark film, so it certainly needed a bit of comic relief every now and then. One of such moments could be Dumbledore making Hogwarts students sing karaoke. Yeah, you heard that right. They actually filmed it. The whole thing took place at the beginning of the Triwizard Tournament. In the movie, guest schools made their performances, but Hogwarts didn't. You probably didn't even notice or thought they didn't have to do it because they hosted the event, but they actually performed too.
Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hoggy Woggy Hogwarts, teach us something, please.
That's the song a school headmaster would write, isn't it?
Whether we be old and old.
But we can actually see why the scene was deleted. After Beauxbaton's charming dance with the butterflies and Durmstrang's fierce entrance, the Hogwarts song looked, well, not so good. But still, the scene was pretty funny, especially when it comes to Malfoy's face. Looked like he was forced to do it under some sort of a spell. Before we show you one more musical scene from the Goblet of Fire, let's watch another scene with Draco that ended up being deleted. Father and son moment. Back in the Chamber of Secrets, Harry mistakenly flew to Nocturne Alley instead of Diagon Alley. And what we didn't see in the final cut is that Draco and his father were also there in that creepy shop.
Don't touch anything, Draco.
Yes, Father.
If the scene stayed, it would be the first time we see Lucius Malfoy. It would also be a great introduction because it shows him as a vicious man right away, even scaring his own son. In fact, something interesting happened behind the scenes while filming it. Jason Isaacs, who played Lucius, didn't know how sharp his cane was. As he hit Tom Felton with it, the boy's eyes welled up with tears because the teeth on the cane went right into his hand. Isaacs immediately broke character and apologized, but Tom's reaction was actually good for the scene. Here's how the young actor later commented on it. He'd be this evil father, and when we'd say cut, he'd come and give you a cuddle and say, "Oh, did I hit you too hard?" Real Jekyll and Hyde. And even after all of that, the scene was still cut, just like the next one. Aunt Petunia was a human. The Dursleys were never good to Harry and hated everything about the wizarding world. But even though they ruined his childhood, he had to protect them from Voldemort and the Death Eaters. So at the beginning of the Deathly Hallows Part 1, we saw them leaving their house for good. Yet, surprisingly, there was no interaction between them and Harry in the film. Knowing how the Dursleys were, they had to at least call him a bad name for forcing them to leave. However, it turns out that Harry had short conversations with them. He explains to his Aunt Petunia that if they get into the hands of the Death Eaters, they'll be tortured. But his aunt replies that she knows what they're capable of and goes on with the most shocking line.
You didn't just lose a mother that night in Godric's Hollow, you know. I lost a sister.
This short scene gives so much depth to Petunia's character. Although she never got along with Lily, it didn't mean that she was happy she died. And while her chance at reconciliation with Harry was probably dead and gone, Dudley took a step to make amends.
I don't think you're a waste of space.
Yeah, just like his mother, he wasn't actually a monster. And still being young, Dudley had a chance to change from a spoiled bully into a normal person. If you read the books, you know that he managed to do it. Later in life, Harry even met him once in a while for holidays.
See you, Big D.
Too bad that those who only watch the films have no idea about it at all. Seriously, was it too hard to show the one time the Dursleys were nice to Harry? Come on. Anyway, here's a cool bonus for you, a musical scene from Goblet of Fire that proves there are wizard rockers too.
I learned to rock and roll, I spin around like a crazy elf.
Well, even though the scene was cut, at least the kids had fun filming it. Which one of these scenes do you think was the most important? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, stay awesome. Support ASA by sending a super thanks. Just click on the thanks button under the video and choose an amount to donate. And remember, we value each one of you.